So he doesn't have to say his name and all that title and stuff. Okay, so where are we?
This is a black cherry provenance test that's a cooperative effort between MSU and the Hardwood Tree Improvement and Regeneration Center, which is a Forest Service agency that's headquartered down at Lafayette, Indiana, and they're also affiliated with Purdue University.
Okay, and we have black cherry trees
Yes,
that you're
black
looking
cherry, yep.
at here?
Collected from sort of the central part of the trees region, which is Pennsylvania, a little bit from Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, and Illinois.
Are there so different genetic
They're different,
variations?
yeah, they're basically what a provenance test is. You collect seed from stands spread across either the entire region or a portion of the region of a species range. And then you put those out in common garden experiments, replicated tests, and see how those various provenance, as we call each seed source a provenance, how they perform in the field. And that the main objective is to say, okay, trees from Pennsylvania or this particular stand in Pennsylvania do well or they don't. So it's basically it's kind of a horse race situation, and you start looking for geographic trends. So maybe all trees from the eastern part tend to do better than the central part, and you look for patterns.
So are you looking specifically for trees that grow well here in Michigan, or is it a broader scope?
Yes, this is primarily an Indiana project, but it does have some applications to Michigan. We are basically the northernmost site in their test network. So any information we get from this site, we can apply to southern Michigan. The information they get from their Indiana sites would only be partially applicable to Michigan growers. And hardwoods are a much bigger market down in Indiana than they are here.
And the end goal then again is to?
The end goal is to really kind of figure out how the variation of the species lays out across the landscape, across the range, and to select. The ideal situation is to identify certain sources of superior seed and then go back to those stands and collect that seed for commercial purposes.
When will you have your data? I mean, how old are these trees, and when will you be collecting data?
Well, they collect data throughout.
Uh-huh.
These trees are about 5 years old. We had some deer browse issues and buck rub issues in here, so they were actually cut off at the ground and coppiced. So what you're looking at here is about three years of 3 growth seasons. They collect form data and any kind of bug or disease problems in here. They collect that every year. The real growth data is not going to be probably particularly useful until age 10 or older. Usually very early growth data do not correlate well with mature growth.
So is it fruit set what you're looking at too?
No, this is all timber. They're
Okay,
definitely
this
this species is a prime timber species. So in addition to rapid growth rate, they're going to be looking at stem form, branch angle, and any kind of disease or insect issues.
And what are these trees used primarily for then?
They're lumber. They're fine lumber, fine furniture, and cabinetry.
And how long does it usually take a tree before they're able to utilize it?
Probably, I would say at least 50 years in native stands.
And how many acres do we have here?
There's actually 2 plantings here, and I think there's about 6 acres all told in cherry.
Okay. And again, can you talk a little bit about the facility and what it allows you to do in terms of the research angle?
Right. Well, because this situation is manned, and Greg Kowaleski and his crew come over here routinely to maintain the place, instead of trucking all their equipment up from Purdue, they can just put in a call. The people at the HTIRC can put in a call to me, and to do some weed control or some mowing or to check the fence. And they can actually pay us to do that, and it's far, far cheaper for them to hire us to just drive an hour and come do the work than for them to drive 3 hours from Indiana.
Great. And are there any other similar projects like this? You said down in Lafayette. Then
They have 3 or 4 test sites down in Indiana. Yeah, all the and they run the gamut all the way from northern Indiana to southern Indiana down near Carbondale, I believe.
Okay. So this is a long-term.
Oh yeah, this is
Yeah.
a very long
Yeah.
term. I mean, the really solid information won't come out of this for at least 15, 20 years.
Okay. Great. And the impact again on the consumer who might be viewing the video. Why would it be important?
Well, basically, the end goal is to produce genetically superior planting stock. So anybody who's interested in growing cherry for lumber could use this material, and they would produce a product that's hopefully higher in quality and certainly would grow faster if we'd done our job correctly.
Great.
I have a quick question. How popular is black cherry in the lumber industry used with furniture and stuff? And are we talking is it the high end?
Yes, black cherry is definitely at the high end of the market. Right now, I think black cherry is actually ahead of black walnut. The different species kind of shift position, as the market tastes change and shift over time. But black cherry recently, I'm not sure about right now, but it's recently commanded very, very high prices. So it's definitely a premium wood.
And when you talk about furniture and stuff, what are you talking about?
Cabinetry, fine furniture, not frames where you're going to upholster over it, but you're basically going to use cherry for fine cabinetry, tables, anywhere where the wood is visible, and they're going to put a fine finish on it.
One other quick question. How important is it for Michigan State to be involved in this? Not just forestry, but Michigan State's reputation in forestry to be able to be a part of a project like this?
Well, I mean, basically, this goes back, like I said, we've been working in forest genetics since the late 50s, and at that time it was very much a regional effort. I mean, every land-grant university in the central part of the country had a forest geneticist, and when one person wanted to work on a species, he would put out the call for seed, and then everybody would chip in, and they would plant sites so that you could get a wide range of data. We're kind of maintaining that tradition to a certain extent, and there's not a lot of it left, and we're kind of known for having a lot of genetics plantations that are still in the ground and where we can still find our way around in there and identify all the seed lots. A lot of these plantations over the years have been abandoned by other institutions, and I think there are many times when they've kind of regretted that lapse.
Yep.
The forest genetics plantation could have other uses, like for the entomologists.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and that's the other thing. A lot of times after we're kind of done getting most of the genetic data that we're looking for, Greg will maintain these plantations into the future and actually thin them at some expense. And basically well, for example, you can use them to look at bug issues that kind of come in out of nowhere. So we have some ash plantations down at Kellogg Forest, and they happen to be right there in the path of the emerald ash borer when they came in. And to my knowledge, nobody else had emerald ash genetic plantations of ash that you could actually look at the gathered data as the bugs moved through and decimated the plantation, so you can get an idea of how much genetic variation there is to tolerance or resistance amongst the trees to emerald ash borer.
Okay. Great.
Thanks, Greg.